Here's what you get with this episode of The Nice Guys on Business.
A lot of studies have gone into this. Is what makes up a happy retirement is one, having purpose. You just left a job of having something to do every day. So our innate human nature, a need to have a purpose. When you don't have that, there's a high depression rate in retirement if you don't fulfill that. And what can solve that is, yes, having hobbies, those kind of things, but also friends, family, all those kind of things as well. As we kind of talk through that, is what that looks like for you. And I love seeing people just start talking about it and they kind of light up and figure out, what it is exactly that they want to do. And then we figure out how we get you there.
Oh, Toto, there's no place like home. There's no place like home. Well, except maybe the Nice Guys on Business podcast. Go from where you are now to where you could be. Get expert tips to grow your business, to be more productive and more efficient, whether you're trying to build influence, grow your community, or make it rain. Best-selling author of Nice Guys Finish First, Doug Sandler, can lead the way. The Nice Guys on Business is produced by Turnkey Podcast Productions. Now, here's your host, Doug Sandler.
All right, Nice Guy community, welcome back to the podcast. So today, let me introduce you to our guest, good friend and client, Shawn Maloney. Shawn's a certified retirement planner. He's a fiduciary. He's a national best-selling author, and he's president of Retire Wise. Now, he's got 20 plus years of experience under his belt. He's helped countless people prepare for retirement, and more importantly, how to retire happy. Now, Shawn is the author and podcast host, as I said, of the Priority of Retirement podcast and the book of the same title. Let's get happy. Shawn, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, great to be here, Doug. Appreciate you having me, man.
Happy to have you, and I've watched the beginning part of your journey as a podcast host and a turnkey client. So thanks for that. And I've heard you work with not only other professionals, go toe to toe with them in the space, but I've also heard you talk to people that are clients or prospective clients of yours as well. And the fallacy that you have to retire penny pinching and budgeted is not necessarily the case. You can retire happy. You can retire with a good lifestyle. Tell me how you came up with that brand, or at least that promise, the Retire Happy logo or slogan.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, we all work hard our whole lives, right? We all want to enjoy our retirement, put those working years behind us, and have a good time in retirement. There's just too many Americans, even though we're in the top 1% of wealthiest nations, that retire and they worry, about their budget month to month. Can I pay my bills? Am I going to have enough? That shouldn't be the way, right? I mean, we should be able to enjoy our retirement. So that's kind of the aspect that we came at it from, is how can we make that happen for you, right? Going through the right planning.
Is it ever too late? Because you have somebody that might be listening to this that might be, pushing 60 or even mid 60s and trying to figure out, hey, look, it's too late for me. I'm just gonna work until the day I drop. Or is there always time that you can retire happy, or at least get to a point where you're comfortable with the income and the outflow of the money coming and going?
Yeah, I mean, we work with all ages. I mean, actually the majority of people we end up working with, they're 50 to 65, 67. We love getting with people when they're younger because you have more runway and it's easier to plan. But I tell people, look, everybody deserves a plan. It doesn't matter where you're at, how old you are, how much you got, right? Let's put a plan. You need to know where you're at. And we'll go from there. So I can't make money rain from the sky, but we can certainly help you with the right plan for what you have.
Well, let's go back and talk to those that are still in the working world and bringing in income right now. Share with our Nice Guy community some of the things that they need to be thinking about at this point, and maybe some of the early on mistakes that people make as it relates to preparing for retirement.
Yeah, it starts with, we all go through life and we're working, we have families, all those kind of things. We tend to forget to start putting money aside for retirement. So the first thing is just the really basic stuff of start, right? Yeah. And start putting money aside, take advantage of the 401k matches, those kind of things. But get your assessments done early, right? It's never too early or young to start planning from the standpoint of, hey, what do I want to do in retirement? That's part of that retire happy as well, is figuring out, well, what do you want to do in retirement, right? Mm-hmm. And you start dreaming a little bit and you start thinking about that. But you can start formulating your plans really early in your career. And I encourage people to do things other than just the 401k, because those 401ks are very limited to what you can invest in. Take advantage of the match, but there's a lot better returns, a lot better options outside of that once you take advantage of the match.
All right, so let's talk about some of the vehicles. In the course of I'm almost 60 years old, so in the course of my investigating from the point, I'm always been very interested in the subject of money and either planning on retirement, even at an early age of early 20s. I was always thinking about life insurance and 401ks and HSAs and all the other stuff that's involved. So what
Yeah.
vehicles do people have that they may not even be thinking about as vehicles that they can use to help them, regardless of how much they put into it? But what are the vehicles that are out there in mass?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot of different things in it. And I always tell people too, it's not a one size fits all, right? Every plan is a personalized plan. So it needs to be customized for each person. But you can do something as simple as just opening up a brokerage account or an IRA brokerage account, and get some help, get some advice on where to put those funds. If you're going to do it yourself, obviously you got to have some research. Go ETFs, exchange traded funds, those kind of things that automatically help diversify yourself.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not going to get advice, but you can start with an IRA. If you qualify, do a Roth IRA, right? Because Roth IRAs, they're not subject to required minimum distributions later on in life. You get your money out tax free. They grow tax free. There are some income limits, but they're fairly high. Start with there. Once you max that out, then you just move on to a straight brokerage account and start investing in the right avenues, right? You got to figure out your risk tolerances. Now, one of the biggest things from the happy factor in retirement, though, is generating guaranteed income, right? What you're doing in retirement planning is you're doing income planning. How are you going to replace that paycheck you've been getting your whole life, right? And so there are vehicles out there like private pensions and IRA with income riders, all those kind of things that can help generate guaranteed income. And that's kind of one of the cornerstones of making sure, you have your monthly needs met.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think about, the greatest annuity of all, Social Security. That's going to be income that's coming in for people. Are you of the school that you feel like you can count on Social Security being there, or are you of the school that feels like, hey, look, if it's there, great, it's a bonus, but don't count on it?
So we do a lot. Of course, we keep tabs on this. We do a lot of research. There's already some things introduced into Congress or in committees, not on the floor yet, that will solidify Social Security for a little while, right? At least for everybody that's living today. They're going to put Band-Aids on it, just like they do with the budget all the time. Every few months, you're like, hey, okay, we're going to do something, keep this thing running for another 6 months. They're going to do kind of the same thing with Social Security. I'm not overly concerned with it, right? There's probably going to be a combination of, downgrades in spending as well as increases in what people pay into Social Security, and how and when that happens to extend this out. So I don't think benefits are going to be cut like, when now it's 2034 rolls around, if they do nothing, benefits go down by 23%, right? That's political suicide. I don't care what side of the fence you're on, right?
Right.
That ain't going to happen. So no, we still count on that in your retirement plan. And we may shave a few percentages off, but yeah, we're still counting on it.
And and I know it's, as you just stated quite wisely, it is not a one size fits all environment, but what's your philosophy as it relates to at which point someone, because this is one of the options that we're all going to have, is when do you want to start taking Social Security? How do you determine how to advise your clients? And for those of you in our community, know that this is not financial advice. Shawn and I are just having a conversation just about this, because I'm just trying to figure out, hey, what could be possibly good for me? What have I not heard, or what have I heard differently than what Shawn's going to provide? So what's your thought for when someone should start taking Social Security?
Yeah, it's a great question, because that can make a big impact on how much benefit you actually get for your lifetime. I've seen it make as big as about $110,000 worth of benefit over the lifetime of getting your Social Security. Again, like you said, we said earlier, it's not a one size fits all. You can take it as early as 62, right? But you lose about 35% of your benefit. For most people, 67 is the full benefit age. Every year you wait after 67, you gain 8% up to 70. Once you reach 70, just take it, because you're not going to get any more. Right. But there's a break-even point to figure out, based off of when you file, how long you got to live to make that difference up, right? Right now, for most people, that break even point is about 10 to 12 years. So, and it also depends whether you're married or not, right? A lot of people don't realize if you're married, one, you have a higher earner. Generally, the higher earner waits a little bit longer. And then the lower earner can file earlier. And you can do the calc to figure out they can take spousal benefits that sometimes will get more than what were even eligible for themselves. So very rarely do we see 62 being the right spot. It's normally close to full retirement age. But if you have assets to cover yourself for a while, you build that Social Security bridge, live off some of your nest egg until you hit 70, take advantage of that, right? So generally it falls somewhere between, 67 to 70. Some circumstances justify earlier. But yeah, you got to go through that analysis for each person.
Yeah, yeah. And again, Nice Guy community, it's definitely not a one size fits all answer to this. And we'll make sure we put a link in the show notes so you know exactly how to get to Shawn and his company. And he'll not only help you get to retirement, but he'll help you get there happy as well. And that is a key factor. Let's talk for a second, Shawn, about diversification. Some of the avenues in which people are exploring or have explored may not even involve an advisor. It's not going to be the stock market. It may not be a financial product. It may be things like real estate, where I'm not sure if you are or you aren't involved in that kind of stuff. When it comes to diversification, what generally would you advise a client when it comes to, hey, you want to make sure that you have some of your portfolio, or at least some of your assets you want to have as real estate?
Yeah, good question. No, we're all for, real estate if it makes sense for that individual, right? I mean, I don't advise real estate as the only source of income for your retirement because there are some risks there, right? I mean, one, you're going to have an increase in cost down the road for maintenance and all those kind of things, and you're not guaranteed. There's two avenues for real estate, really, right? You can rental properties, or are you flipping houses, kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you're doing the rental route, there's no guarantee that you're going to rent that thing out. So we always use that as a second step, or after you have your monthly need covered, that guaranteed part. Let's make sure we generate your paycheck first. And then by all means, yes, if you already have real estate, or if that's just a passion, that's a great thing too, right? When you're in retirement, that's part of that. What do you want to do in retirement? And people shift from, man, I've been working every day. Now what am I going to do with my time? Sometimes real estate's a great thing, whether you're flipping houses or whether you're, going to be a landlord and renting, it can occupy some of your time. So you kind of two birds with one stones. I'm all for it, but not as your primary source of income.
Very good. Very good advice. I think about the avenues that I approach as I get, closer to retirement, or at least closer to even considering retirement. And one of the things that you talk about in your promise statement is that retiring happy. It's essential not only that you retire, but you retire doing what you want to do. So
Yeah.
what does it look like when you have that first meeting or two with a prospective client, and you start to talk about the promise of retiring happy? Because it's not just about money and income. It's about doing what you want to do in retirement. Share your philosophy about that.
100%. Thanks for asking that, because that's the first thing we talk about. You come to a financial guy, and the first thing we're going to talk about is nothing to do with money, right?
Right.
It's your retirement why. What do you want to do in retirement? What are you going to spend your time? Some people, it's, hey, I've worked hard. I just want to sit my butt on the couch and watch TV all day long. Fine, right? That's great. Or some people want to travel the world. Some people want to go on missions. Some people want to serve their community in different ways. Whatever your passion is, let's think about that, right? Because that's going to ultimately do two things. One, yes, we're going to use that because we need to figure out how are we going to fund your retirement. Well, we want to fund your retirement to make sure you can do those things. But the first thing is that a lot of studies have gone into this, is what makes up a happy retirement is, one, having purpose. You just left a job of having something to do every day. So our innate human nature, a need to have a purpose. When you don't have that, there's a high depression rate in retirement if you don't fulfill that. And what can solve that is, yes, having hobbies, those kind of things, but also friends, family, all those kind of things as well. As we kind of talk through that, is what that looks like for you. And I love seeing people just start talking about it, and they kind of light up and figure out what it is exactly that they want to do, and then we figure out how we get you there.
Nice. I think one of the things that people are oftentimes challenged with, or maybe they don't even think about as they start to approach that retirement age, if you're in your 50s or 60s, you're feeling good, life is good, you're not really thinking about the potential that there would be a health scare or any type of health issue. So I know oftentimes one of the last things that's thought about is one of the bigger expenses as you get closer to retirement, and that's healthcare expenses. Talk
Yep.
for a second about maybe your philosophy or some advice that you have about long-term care insurance.
Yeah, most definitely. It's a great question because we always tell people if you don't have healthcare accounted for in your retirement plan, you don't have a complete plan. In retirement, the average person is going to spend a little over $300,000 in healthcare in retirement, right? That's a big number.
Yeah.
That's going to be smaller for some, bigger for others, but our bodies start breaking down. We're going to be spending some money, right? And there's different ways to solve for that. You can, yes, there's long-term care insurance for those that need to go in assisted living or nursing homes or even at home care, right? That pays for that as well. Some people don't need all that, but you need higher, better levels of insurance. So before I answer that first part of that question, make sure you have the right Medicare supplements. I don't sell supplements, but I can firsthand testify the power of them, right? I mean, my dad cracked up about $375,000 worth of medical bills before he passed away, and my mom only had to pay $3,000 out of pocket because they had the right supplements, right? And they're not a one size fits all either. There's different avenues. So there's people you can talk to for that, and we can point you in the right direction. Long-term care insurance is tricky. If you get into it too young, you're going to pay less premiums monthly, but you're going to be paying them for a lot longer, right? Mm-hmm. But if you wait too long and you get long-term care insurance too late, the premium is going to be through the roof. You're not going to be able to afford it. Mm-hmm. So the sweet spot's generally in your mid-50s or so, but it's gotten a little more complicated because not as many companies are even offering it anymore. And when you go to get it, there's a lot of options. How long is it good for? How much does it pay out? For what durations? When does it start? All these different things. So you definitely need advice with it, but there are ways to self-fund it as well, right? There's one thing we try to do with the clients is if you have the assets, we'll invest a chunk of your assets to save up for long-term care needs. And there's also some investments that you can put riders on top of to help pay for accelerated benefits for long-term care, right? So in other words, you're not locked into just long-term care insurance, right? There's other solutions to solve the problem.
Creative thinking as financially, as you approach retirement or even approach trying to think about retirement, I think is a key. And I think that is not something that you can get from I know I'm not talking to you, Shawn, I'm talking more to my audience here. It's not something that you can get as a self-serve automated technology, hey, I'm just going to get online and make all of my decisions. It's one of those things where to have a human relationship with an advisor like Shawn to be able to help you get advice, go back and forth. How many times have you seen, or you had somebody walk into your office and they've made a lot of decisions based upon some advice that they have gotten, and it wasn't the right advice, or it wasn't based upon their actual scenario that they have set up? I'm sure that's a common occurrence if somebody's walking in as a new prospect or a new client to your office. Is that right?
100%, because I mean, we live in an age where there's information all around us, right? And whether you hear it off of the internet, YouTube, your brother-in-law, the water fountain gossip, whatever it may be, right? There's all kinds of information out there, but there's a lot of misinformation, and there's a lot of information that gets diluted. They may start off well-intended and they hear one thing, but by the time it gets to the next person or down the line, it's incorrect. And so that's one reason too, we say it's not a one size fits all, because the advice for one person might not be the right advice for you, right? It might've been right for Joe, but it's not right for Betty, right? So you got to get customized advice. And unfortunately, there's some characters out there that are just putting information out there to sell you something, right? They're not fiduciaries. They're not acting in your best interest. They're just trying to get you to sell you a product. So you got to do your research. You got to dig in and work with someone that can actually learn about you and what your needs are, not just trying to get you onto a certain investment or a product. It happens all the time.
One of the things that, and maybe because I've clicked a couple of times on some of the Facebook videos or Instagram stories or something like that, I get in my feed a lot of these, and retire on $500,000, retire on $750,000, retire, with the income that you have and the lifestyle that you have. Is there any? And again, I know this is not a one size fits all environment, but is there any way to determine how much one would need in retirement based upon the lifestyle that they have right now. Because isn't that like the age-old question? How much money am I going to need to retire?
Right. Yeah, you see those commercials where they put that big number over your head and say, "What's your retirement number? What do you need?"
Right.
And like you said, it's different. It's different for everybody. And those different numbers that are thrown out there, I mean, we've seen it be a low number, and I've seen people be surprised that they're more okay than they thought they would be, because they hear all this stuff out there that, oh, you're going to have X amount of millions of dollars to do, to survive. Well, depends on your lifestyle, depends what you want to do. But I've seen people be shocked at that they didn't need as much as they thought. Right. But then there's the other side of the table as well, where I've had people that want to do all these things in their retirement, but they don't really have anything in the old account. Right. So it is all over the board, but it's not, here's the thing, those gimmicks that say, here's a set amount of money and you're going to be able to retire on it. Well, you know what? That set of money is fixed, right? Of course, it should be invested and grown, but it all depends on the drawdown strategy. This is the biggest thing I can tell anybody is everybody's focused on accumulation, which you need to focus on accumulation while you're younger and you're growing and you're getting that funds. 90% of Americans don't have a proper drawdown plan, a distribution plan. Okay, I've reached the pinnacle, I've reached the top. How the heck am I drawing this money down and making it last? Right? That's the piece of the puzzle that the majority of people are missing.
One of the things that I've heard over and over again is, and again, I'm gonna yes and you, yes, and they're not thinking about the drawdown period, or the drawdown method, but they're also not thinking about the vehicles, the order in which they're going to be taking that money down. There are some products that are inherently built to start taking down the moment that you retire, and there's some that no, you don't want to touch any of that right now. Is that a common problem that people have when they get to this? We've spent all of our life in the accumulation phase, and we don't really think about until we're here at retirement. Oh my gosh, what am I supposed to take, and what's the sequence in which I'm supposed to take this money?
Yeah, that's a great point, and it does make a big difference. The order in which you take your money out can make a difference of how long your money's going to last, right? So general rule of thumb is you let your tax deferreds and tax frees run, let them continue to grow. You're generally going to take your taxable account money out first. That's your straight brokerage accounts, anything that's hasn't been taxed yet or tax deferred. The taxable accounts are going to get hit first. Then you go to your tax deferred, then you go to your tax free. That's a general rule of thumb, right? There are cases where it doesn't play out that way, but that's the majority of it. So the other thing too, though, is when you're in retirement, we tell people that, look, your money acts different in retirement than it does, or your investment accounts act different in retirement than it does pre-retirement. One of the main reasons is because you're taking money out, right? And so if you're taking money out in a down market, it's crazy the impact of what that has on your overall longevity. It's a thing called sequence of returns risk that a lot of people don't even heard that term. But it's the order of which how the returns come in the first 5 years of your retirement, right? And people are going to say, well, I can't control what the market does. Oh, yeah, yeah, true. I wish we could, because we all wouldn't be sitting here today.
Very true. We'd all be financial advisors.
Exactly. But there's ways to protect yourself. Those first 5 years, the 5 years before and the 5 years after, I call the fragile decade. Is the first 5 years going into, you got to start protecting yourself, shifting your assets to a protect plus grow, just not a grow. And then the next years after that, you're still in that mode, but you got to really watch out for, if you retired in a down market, that you have your assets positioned in a way that market's not going to affect you. I've seen it make huge differences, like to the point of 2 retirees getting the same average rate of return. One took their retired in a down market. The other person retired in a okay market. The person that retired in a down market took hits the first 5 years. Their money lasted 12 years less than the other person.
Wow.
Because they weren't protected.
That's and how do you even, because that's an ever evolving process here.
Sure. Yeah.
You don't really know. Is that, again, I'm gonna state the obvious, I guess, to me, but maybe not to everybody that's out there, isn't that the one of the benefits of working with somebody that has the level of experience that you have, is that you're not just a one and done. You're not having a meeting
Yeah.
and, when somebody's 59 and saying, okay, good luck. You're with them every step of the way. Is that how that works?
100%. You're along, not to be cliché, but you're along for their journey, right? If you're working with advisors, they should be doing annual reviews with you. They should be available whenever you have questions, but your plan should be reassessed at least yearly, or when you have a life change, right? Yeah, because you could have things happen to your life, your needs change, the market changes, products changes, investments changes. It needs to be adapted as you go.
Hey, before we wrap up, I want to spend just a moment. I wouldn't be doing you justice unless I gave you a moment to talk about not only your book but your podcast of the same name. I know you spent a good amount of time writing your book and getting it out there, becoming a best-selling author. You're in the early journey of your podcast. You're a couple of dozen episodes out as of the airing of this podcast episode that you're doing here on The Nice Guys. It seems like, you have a good marketing effort as it is. You have a good brand with Retire Happy. You have a good promise statement there. Why the need for a book and a podcast? Just share a little bit about what your philosophy is in reaching the masses with both the book and the podcast.
Yeah, great question. We're big about education. We love people to be educated about what the advice that they're getting and what they're getting into. So whenever we work with someone, we're going to educate them. And this is just a means. The podcast and the book is a means to help educate people, whether they do business with us or not. We want them to walk away better off than they were before they either read the book or before they listened to a couple of episodes of the podcast. Hopefully a lot of episodes of the podcast, right? But it's about education, getting the right and proper information out there. And like the name of the podcast and the book is, the priority of retirement. Let's make, retirement a priority. You're growing up and then you get into adulthood, and then if you have kids, your focus becomes kids. It's time to put the focus on you. Let's make your retirement a priority. Let's get you educated. And that was really the stem of this, is to get the right information in the hands of people.
Well, if you want to get more, if you're in our Nice Guy community and you want to get more information about Shawn and what he does, I'm going to put a few links in the show notes. So I'm going to give you one here. It's retirewisepro.com. That is his website. If you check the link in the show notes, or the links in the show notes, you'll have access not only to his book, but his podcast as well. I would start with the easy stuff. Start with the book. You get an idea of what he's all about, and you have something substantial in your hand that you can say, hey, this is a solid guy, solid reputation. His promise statement of helping you retire or retire happy is right there, and you can retire wise at the same time. So, Shawn, I so appreciate you sharing your message and your inspiration and what you're all about. Looking forward to hearing it. You've got some really good episodes that you've put out with your podcast as well. And it really is cool because you have a lot of peer-to-peer conversations in the early stages of your podcast. I know we've moved beyond just the peer-to-peer conversations, but you have a lot of really good conversations with those that are in the know also. And
Right.
It's always good to hear a difference of philosophy and process, but at the same time, getting people to the end result, which would be for having them to retire happy. So it's always good to have that as well. So thanks for sharing, and thanks for being doing what you do on the podcast.
Thanks, Doug. I appreciate it, buddy.
Hey, for those of you in our community, again, check the link in the show notes for the book and the podcast, how you get more information from Shawn and what he does and how he does it. But if you want to, go right now to retirewisepro.com, get more information about Shawn and his company. Thanks for sharing again. Never underestimate the power of nice. Never underestimate the power of being happy in retirement. I encourage you to do that as I get a little bit closer myself to retirement. All these subjects are so fascinating to me because I do have a lot of great conversations, and everybody makes sense in their own way. And Shawn's definitely retire happy. That's a philosophy that I could agree with. Steve O'Brien, go ahead and take us out of here.
For the Nice Guys on Business, I'm Steve O'Brien. Fill up your week with the Nice Guys. Well, there's always money in the banana stand.